When we begin to look closely at life, we notice that so much of our experience is filtered through the idea of separation. The mind labels, divides, and categorizes, creating a constant sense of me and ooh, and there, inside and outside. From the time we are children, we are taught to see ourselves as separate individuals navigating a world of objects, people, and circumstances. This conditioning becomes so ingrained that it feels like the natural order of things. Yet, if we pause and pay attention, we may discover that this sense of separation is more like a veil drawn across reality than reality itself. It is a construct, a habit of perception, rather than an unshakable truth. Consider for a moment how the body itself appears to have boundaries. You can trace the outline of your skin, the contours of your face, the shape of your hands. And yet, is your skin truly a boundary, or is it also a bridge? It allows air, light, touch, and energy to flow through. Every breath you take is the world entering you, and every exhale is you entering the world. The line where you end and the universe begins is not nearly as rigid as the mind assumes. Instead, there is constant exchange, a seamless dance, a merging that is happening all the time. Think of the ocean and the waves. Each wave has a form, a beginning, a peak, and an end. To the eye, one wave seems separate from another, but in truth, each wave is simply the ocean expressing itself in a unique pattern. The wave cannot exist apart from the ocean. In the same way, we are expressions of something vast, inseparable from the field of existence that gives rise to everything. When we identify only with the surface forms, the illusion of separation appears. When we rest deeper in awareness, the ocean reveals itself as our true nature. The mind is skilled at reinforcing boundaries. It whispers, "This is mine, that is yours. This is right, that is wrong. This is self, that is other." And yet these divisions are not inherent in reality. They are drawn like lines in the sand, easily washed away by the tide of a deeper seeing. When we begin to look beyond these mental constructs, even for a moment, a spaciousness opens within us. We see that the boundaries were never absolute, only imagined. Notice how this insight begins to soften the way we relate to life. When the walls of separation dissolve, fear and defensiveness give way to connection and openness. We begin to sense that the other person is not truly other, that nature is not separate from us, that the universe is not something outside to be observed, but the very ground of our being. This shift is not about adopting a new belief, but about directly experiencing what has always been the case. And so, as we rest here together, we allow the illusion of separation to gently fade. We let the mind's boundaries loosen and dissolve into the wider expanse of awareness. In that space, we discover a profound truth: what we are is not limited, not divided, not apart. What we are is whole, continuous, and inseparable from everything. When we strip away the layers of thought, emotion, and sensation, what remains is something so simple, so fundamental, that we often overlook it. That something is awareness itself. It does not come and go the way thoughts do. It is not colored by moods the way emotions are, and it is not bound by the rise and fall of bodily sensations. Awareness is the constant background, the silent witness that is always present, regardless of what appears within it. Think about how experiences pass through your mind. A thought arises, lingers for a moment, and dissolves. A feeling of joy may come unexpectedly, fill you for a while, and then shift into something else. Even pain, as overwhelming as it may feel, eventually subsides, and yet through every change, one thing never disappears: the capacity to be aware. Whether you are happy or sad, still or restless, clear or confused, awareness is always here, untouched. This awareness does not belong to any one person. It is not something you can hold, grasp, or claim as mine. Notice how awareness has no borders. If you close your eyes, there is no edge where awareness stops. It does not say, "This is me, that is not me." It simply holds everything: the sound of your breath, the beating of your heart, the faint hum of life all around you. Everything is welcomed without resistance, without judgment. When you rest in awareness, you may notice a deep sense of spaciousness. the small dramas of the mind begin to lose their weight. You no longer feel trapped by every thought, pulled by every emotion, or confined by every story. Instead, you begin to recognize that all of these movements are like clouds drifting through the open sky of awareness. The clouds have shape, color, and form, but the sky itself is never harmed by them, never diminished, never burdened. In this way, awareness is the common ground of all experience. It is the one field in which everything arises and dissolves. It is shared by all beings, whether they realize it or not. Just as countless waves move upon the same ocean, countless experiences unfold within the same awareness. When you begin to identify more with awareness than with the shifting content, you start to see life in a profoundly different way. You no longer cling so tightly to what comes and goes because you know that behind it all, what you truly are is unchanging. This shift brings with it a natural peace. You no longer feel the need to defend the self-image that the mind has created, because awareness does not need defending. You no longer feel separate from others, because you see that the same awareness looking through your eyes is the same awareness looking through theirs. This recognition opens the door to compassion, to love, to a sense of unity that is not forced but inherent. And so, let us rest now, not in the fleeting waves of thought or feeling, but in the silent ocean of awareness that is already here, vast and undivided, the timeless presence that we have always been. The ego is a lens through which we view the world, a filter that colors every perception and experience. It tells us who we are, what we should desire, what we should fear, and how we should define ourselves in relation to others. It thrives on labels, on roles, on comparisons. It whispers, I am separate, I am different, I am special, I am lacking, I am better, I am worse. This constant chatter creates a sense of identity, but it is an identity built on shifting sands. The ego is never stable because it depends on conditions that are always changing. When we identify with the ego, we become entangled in its endless cycle of grasping and resisting. We cling to praise and resist criticism. We seek security and fear loss. We chase pleasure and avoid discomfort. The ego moves like a pendulum, swinging between extremes, never resting, always searching. Yet beneath this restless movement lies something far more steady, far more real. The ego is like a cloud passing through the sky. It may seem dense and solid, but it cannot obscure the openness of the sky itself. Meditation offers us a way to loosen the grip of the egoic lens. When we sit in stillness, observing thoughts without judgment, we begin to see that the ego is not who we are. We notice its patterns, its strategies, its endless demands, but we also realize that there is something deeper within us that is simply watching. That silent, witnessing presence does not rise and fall with the ego's stories. It remains steady, unchanging, untouched. The more we rest in that awareness, the less power the ego holds over us. Imagine for a moment looking into a mirror. The reflection you see is not you, it is simply an image. In the same way, the ego is like a reflection in the mirror of the mind. It appears real, it takes on a certain shape, but it is not the essence of who you are. When you mistake the reflection for the reality, suffering arises. But when you know yourself as the presence in which the reflection appears, freedom begins to dawn. As the grip of ego softens, life becomes lighter. You no longer feel the same urgency to prove yourself or to defend an identity. You begin to act not out of fear or comparison, but out of clarity and presence. Relationships shift because you no longer approach others as separate selves in competition, but as expressions of the same awareness. Compassion flows naturally because the walls that once divided from you lose their solidity. This is not about destroying the ego. It has its role in navigating the world, but about no longer being confined by it. It is about seeing through the lens rather than being trapped inside it. When this clarity arises, a sense of spaciousness opens, and in that spaciousness, peace, freedom, and unity naturally reveal themselves. And so, let us rest beyond the reflections of the ego, abiding instead in the vast, unshakable awareness that has always been our true self. Meditation is often misunderstood as an escape, as if sitting quietly with closed eyes means withdrawing from the world or denying the experiences of daily life. In truth, meditation is not about turning away from reality, but about returning to it, returning to the essence that lies beneath the noise of thought and the turbulence of emotion. It is the bridge that brings us back to wholeness, back to the awareness that is always present, patiently waiting beneath the surface. When you close your eyes and allow the mind to settle, something remarkable begins to happen. At first, thoughts may rush in, distractions may crowd your attention, and the ego may resist stillness. But if you simply observe without judgment, if you let each thought rise and fall like a wave dissolving into the ocean, you begin to sense that you are not the thought, you are the awareness in which the thought appears. This realization deepens with practice, and slowly the boundaries that once felt so rigid begin to soften. The breath can serve as a gentle guide. Each inhale invites you into the present moment, and each exhale releases the weight of the past and the anticipation of the future. Breathing with awareness is not about controlling the breath, but about witnessing its natural rhythm, a rhythm that has been carrying you through every moment of life without effort. As you rest with the breath, you start to feel the quiet stillness beneath all movement, the silence beneath all sound. There are many ways to enter this state. Sometimes it is through focusing on a single point, like the rise and fall of the chest or the subtle sensation of air passing through the nostrils. Other times it is through open awareness, simply allowing all experiences, thoughts, sounds, feelings, and sensations to flow through without clinging or resisting. What matters is not the technique, but the quality of attention, the willingness to be present with whatever arises without judgment. As this practice deepens, something begins to shift in the way you relate to yourself and to life. You no longer feel trapped inside the restless stories of the mind, nor do you feel as though you must chase every passing desire or resist every discomfort. Instead, you begin to rest in a space of openness, a space that is already whole and complete. Meditation does not create this wholeness, it reveals it. It shows you what has always been true, that beneath the layers of conditioning, you are inseparably part of the vast field of awareness. This is why meditation is not just a practice done in silence, but a way of being that seeps into every aspect of life. It changes how you listen, how you speak, how you respond, and how you see others. The stillness cultivated in meditation becomes the ground from which compassion, clarity, and presence naturally arise. And so, let us allow meditation to guide us back, not away from life, but into the wholeness of life itself, into the boundless awareness that is our deepest truth. When the sense of oneness begins to unfold within you, it does not remain confined to moments of meditation. It seeps into the fabric of daily life, reshaping the way you see, the way you act, and the way you relate to others. The boundaries that once felt so firm begin to soften, and suddenly even the smallest interactions become expressions of unity. You realize that the person sitting across from you at the table, the stranger you pass on the street, the tree swaying in the wind, and the bird soaring overhead are all part of the same living field in which you exist. In relationships, this shift becomes especially profound. So much of human interaction is shaped by the ego, by the need to defend, compare, or control. But when awareness of oneness awakens, you start to listen differently. You no longer hear only the words being spoken, you sense the consciousness behind the words. You recognize that the same awareness looking through your eyes is also looking through theirs. This recognition dissolves conflict, softens judgment, and opens the heart to compassion. The other person is no longer an other, they are another expression of the same wholeness that you are. Work and creativity, too, are transformed by this awareness. Instead of approaching tasks with a divided sense of self, trying to prove something, achieve something, or resist something, you find yourself moving from a deeper flow. The boundaries between effort and ease, between doing and being, begin to blur. Action arises naturally, not as a struggle but as a harmonious unfolding. Even the most ordinary activities, washing dishes, writing an email, walking through a crowded market, can be infused with a sense of presence and unity. Life itself becomes meditation. Nature reveals this truth with clarity. When you walk through a forest or sit by the ocean, it becomes obvious that everything is interconnected. The trees breathe out the oxygen you breathe in. The sunlight nourishes the plants that nourish your body. The waves of the sea echo the rhythm of your own breath. You begin to see that there is no separation between yourself and the world around you. The same intelligence that moves the stars also beats your heart. The same field of existence that gives rise to rivers and mountains also gives rise to thoughts and feelings. Recognizing this, you no longer feel like a separate observer of life, but a participant in its eternal dance. Even in moments of challenge or difficulty, this perspective brings a sense of peace. When you no longer see life as something happening to you, but as something happening through you, and as you, resistance gives way to acceptance. Compassion arises not only for others, but for yourself as well, because you see that every struggle is part of the larger unfolding of the whole. And so, as the awareness of oneness grows, daily life ceases to feel ordinary. It becomes a sacred expression of unity, where every moment, every breath, and every interaction reflects the boundless presence that you truly are,